Do not recommend. Good. All right. Good evening, everyone. I hereby call the Monday, December 29th, 2024 Cumberland Town Council meeting to order.
It's not the 29th. It's
Oh,
the
God.
Ninth.
December 9th.
9th.
Wow.
There we go. Not the,
Wow. Wishing it was past Christmas already. I wanted to start off the meeting by announcing the resignation of Helene DiBartolomeo, who held the West Cumberland Council seat. We thank her so much for her time and service. I am truly bummed she will not be here anymore, but we are working quickly to establish next steps to fill the vacancy. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 25th, 2024 meeting. Comments, questions, discussion?
I would move to adopt as presented.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. The next item on the agenda is manager's report. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everybody. Good to see you all. Making it through the, I guess, the third storm event we've had of the winter. Not that we're counting, but I know our crew's looking forward to, once again, keeping the roads safe and ready for travel soon. I have a couple of things on tonight. This Thursday, the town offices will be closing at 4 p.m. as the staff will be holding its annual holiday celebrations at Valhalla. And so we're looking forward to that and getting together with the staff. And then also we will be closing at noon on Christmas Eve. So please plan ahead on those 2 days. I want to circle back on the recent incident, shooting incident at Knights Pond that took place just a short bit ago. We're all saddened and disturbed by the shooting of the dog by a hunter at Knights Pond, and that was 2 weeks ago Friday. It was a terrible accident by all accounts. As dog owners and frequent users of Knights Pond, our hearts go out to the family for the loss of their pet. It was truly a tragic event. I want folks to know the Maine's Warden Service is leading the investigation into the incident. We want to be clear that there is no threat to the public, and we know that the hunter has turned himself in to the authorities. We've not received a report or additional details from the Warden Service, as this is an ongoing active investigation, but we do trust our fellow law enforcement agencies to conduct their work. Hunter has been charged with 1 count of shooting at domestic animals, and other charges may follow that investigation. But at this point in time, it's solely in the hands of the Maine Warden Service. Knights Pond is a 334-acre preserve with 6.5 miles of trails, forest habitat, and a 46-acre pond, and it's owned by the towns of Cumberland, North Yarmouth, Sheboygan Cumberland Land Trust, and Royal River Land Trust hold conservation easements on the property. And these 4 organizations worked together to acquire and protect the property in 2015. A joint standing committee between the towns of Cumberland and North Yarmouth is responsible for managing the property with the assistance of the Land Trust and the Royal River Conservation Trust when needed. Now, it's a multi-use property. We want visitors to use the trails and feel safe in doing so. And trail access needs to be balanced with the equal right for people to pursue other recreational activities. Hunting is one of those uses, and hunting at Knights Pond is a permitted activity subject to the inland fisheries and wildlife laws and municipal laws. There's no hunting on Sundays. Signage at the property clearly indicates that hunting is permitted and that all visitors should wear blaze orange. Funds from the Land for Maine's Future program were used to help purchase the property. And by statute, meaning by law, hunting, fishing, and trapping must be allowed on the property. The towns and land trust post reminders about hunting season on their kiosks, websites, and social media to increase awareness. But we want visitors to be aware when walking on properties with hunting to please stay on the trails, wear blaze orange on themselves and pets, and keep pets on leash or close by. This is the first ever hunting incident at Knights Pond, and hunting is a traditional sport in Maine and generally a safe sport. Hunters are responsible for following the laws and the regulations and employing safe best practices. And it also plays an important role in wildlife management that helps control the deer population and prevent the spread of tick-borne diseases. This is an ongoing conversation that's been taking place through both towns with our public safety folks as well as with the land trust. And we had a joint meeting a week or so ago where we all got together to talk about possible solutions, and there will be additional actions that will come forward in the future. And as those changes do come forward, we will provide updates and work on that collaboratively. But I thought it was important to bring that information forward to the overall town. I want to thank Chief Rumsey as well as Whitney for getting our information out as quickly as soon as we learned about it through the town's website, which I thought helped a situation, really a sad situation, at least get the information out there so people could get the best information and not let let's just say the rumor mill spin up inaccuracies. So we tried to get the most information as we could out there, but we do trust our friends at the Warden Service to help move this forward and do their work. Outside of that, Madam Chair, I think that's plenty to report this evening, but we are looking forward to the holiday season, and we hope, we've got one more meeting this month, so I'll save most of our other items for that point, so thank you for that.
Thank you so much. All right, the next item on our agenda is public discussion. Public discussion is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Rebuttal comments will be limited to 2 minutes. Public discussion topics may be brought up again under new business for further council discussion. Is there anyone that has public comment? No one. Oh, Bob. Sure. Go ahead, Bob Vale.
This may be just a slightly out of character or off topic, but I did want to respond. A town council chairwoman made me aware of a Facebook posting this morning, and I had heard some rumblings about this going on. Somebody else had mentioned this also, that there was a meeting occurring on Friday mornings between the chairperson of the select board, the chairperson of the school board, and the chairperson of the town council, and that these meetings were unregulated, undocumented, and that these concerned citizens were feeling that there was something that was out of hand going on. And so I thought it'd be best that if I explained the background to what this was and why this occurred, and I know that there are some members here in the public who might be able to collaborate that. When I became chair of the town council, I think it was 4 years ago, I saw an opportunity for me to reach out to the school board and extend my hand to them and say that, we wanted to repair the rift between the council and the school board, and that we wanted to start some conversations. So out of that initial conversation, Tyler McGinley was the chairperson, and she had been attacked many times. It was my feeling that, at the very least, we should get together and have some conversations. And so out of that, she and I and Brian Seitz of North Yarmouth started meeting on a Friday morning. And while there was, and Allison Foster was my vice chair. So the four of us, we met, and I won't say we met every Friday, but we met a number of Fridays for just a round table of getting to know each other, FaceTime. And FaceTime is important if you have if you want to get to know people. It's important that you spend time with people. It's important that you, how's your family? How are the kids? And certainly Brian and Alice and Tyler had children all the same age, and so they had a lot in common, and so at some point I guess I was kind of the odd man out. But the result of those conversations was a feeling of camaraderie, a feeling of that we had a better chance to understand each other, that we had an opportunity to find out who we were, and yes, occasionally we did look at our calendars and say, maybe a joint meeting between the complete boards of the school board, the select board, and the town council might be in order. But to think that we conducted business is a pattern I is just untrue and factual, not, it's a lie. And so part of what I did as my time as chairman was to make sure that my vice chair was suited to step into my shoes at any time. And so a lot of what I was doing was making sure that I laid the groundwork for the following year. And so I know that Allison continued that, and Mark Seacrest followed that along also. So the idea of people getting together and having a cup of coffee and having a conversation is not to conduct business out of the sight of the public. What it is intended to do is to have FaceTime conversations with people so that you can build some trust, you can build an understanding of who you are and the goals that you are, you know, so that people understand that we're working together. These are two communities that are very closely aligned. That have 70% of our dollar is allocated to going to the school district. And a little bit of time spent with people and getting to know them is not wasted. And anybody would want to challenge that and suggest that what we're doing is collusion, what we're doing is evil, or that we now have a, what do they call that women's club there?
Mean Girls.
Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not what this is. And if you want any questions, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to one of us. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that sentiment. Was there any other public comment at this time? No? All right. Please state your name and where you live.
My name is Tyler McGinley, and I am from Cumberland, Maine. I grew up here, and now I'm an adult here, which is a new thing. And I don't remember all the legalities of all of this. I've put that behind me because I'm no longer an elected public official on the board. But I have 3 things I will say. If new board members are uncomfortable with this meeting, then maybe the chair could step away for a time and they could join. And maybe they could all get to know each other a little differently. I think there was always interest to attend these meetings because we spoke on them very highly, but those were responsibilities of the chair. And so if there's levels of uncomfort with that, I just think there's more of an opportunity to build a relationship there. Secondly, I would say that maybe that this was one of the most proud things that I walked away from my time on the school board. I was there for 7 years. I was chair for 2-ish years, and whenever I'm asked about that time, I'm always really proud of the time that we spent as a group. And my dad died during that time. We went through a lot of harassment, and you guys sat with me almost every Friday and just checked in. And literally that was it. If something different is happening now, then I encourage everyone to be reminded of what that original mission was. And then lastly, I would just say that if there's any confusion, then maybe there should be mention of this in a charter or a policy or something like that, so that this isn't what we spend our time on. Because I will always answer a phone call from you at 7:30 in the morning because of the relationship that we built. But to drive here based on a Facebook post is just a bummer. And so please remember that we are all humans, and this is just about humanity and making friendships.
Yeah.
So that's my experience with what Bob had to share. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Was there anyone else for public comment? Thank you. Please state your name and where you live.
I'm actually not a resident of Cumberland. I'm a resident of North Yarmouth. My name is Brian Seitz. I'm the former chair of the select board in North Yarmouth. I live on 2 Colowicki Drive over there off North Road. I will just say that I want to echo both what Bob and Tyler said to kind of give a little more context of how that group really helped me in my role in North Yarmouth. My first act when I took over the chairmanship was to accept the resignation of our town manager. We were coming out of COVID. People were going crazy with just all sorts of issues and you know, legitimate complaints about how do we move forward and, you know, should we wear these stupid face masks and for how long and when and where. So this group really helped me as a civic leader kind of guide some of those discussions. You know, it's like I could bounce stuff off of Tyler, I could bounce stuff off of Bob. They were on these guys, you know, when they stepped into it. And I would really encourage folks to think about if you find an issue with your civic leaders meeting and discussing, you know, within the means of within the realm of the law, right? Meaning no one's meeting and, you know, there's no quorum and that kind of thing. I would want more civic engagement among my leaders than less, because when you meet and you're engaged, some of the things that came out of this is the tri-meeting that we have now. Or I don't know if you guys still do it, but we did back then. And it was the first time that all three entities got together and actually had a review of what are you guys all working on, you know, so that all the public could see it. So I think, if anything, it's given us more transparency, and it's really was an effective tool for me as a leader. So I would encourage you to continue the practice if you're not, and I would encourage the public to take a hard look at it and say, you know, maybe this is a really good thing that all these communities are talking together, because everything we do impacts one another. So that's it.
Appreciate it. Any other public comment? That's it. Then I will close public discussion and we'll move into legislation and policy. Please note there will be an opportunity for public comment per Article 2, Section 7 of the Town Charter. There will be an opportunity for public comment on each item on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. The first item on the agenda, 24-135, to consider an act on authorizing the code enforcement officer to execute an administrative consent agreement with the property owners at 16 Old Musket Road. Mr. Manager, do you mind providing a little bit of an overview of where this sits at?
I'd be happy to, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. What you have for the council action this evening is to authorize Mr. Longley to sign a consent agreement with Mr. and Mrs. Segrist for their property at Old Musket Road. What this article is intended to cure is oftentimes what you will find is a building may be out of compliance with setbacks or something along those lines, and it may have happened back when the house was built, or many times multiple owners before. And this is an opportunity to correct an error that took place when the home was constructed. You'll notice in Exhibit A, there's a letter of what they call letter of no action. And that used to be the remedy for this back forever ago. But as over years, the underwriting process has, let's say in the world of lending, has created the need to have, let's say, closure and correct closure of issues that exist with setbacks. So you remember 2 months ago we had one when there was an offending bulkhead that was just over the setback line. Well, in this case, it would be the same. The prior owner, when they constructed the home, they positioned the house and it just fell out of compliance with that building envelope. And there may have been some misunderstanding as to what the rear line setback was, and had used the sideline setback. And it's a no harm, no foul type of thing. But in this case, the remedy is to record a consent agreement between the town and the current owners, which are Mr. and Mrs. Segrist. And in this case, the town is out of pocket, not a penny. The Segrists will take care of all the legal expenses and everything related to this, but it's important to have this corrected for the future, for going forward. So that's why we bring it here to you this evening, because the council needs to bless such an item.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Mark, I don't know if you wanted to say anything. Are you all set? This is your time to shine.
Who is this person?
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager. Madam Chair, thank you very much, and members of the Town Council. My name is Mark Segrist, and I reside at 16 Old Musket Road with my wife, Angela Stone. And as the Town Manager just explained, when we purchased this house in 2018, and we went through the normal legal process that you go through, hiring an attorney, doing the title checks and all of those other things, this issue never really popped up. And I'm guessing you probably have the map of the location of the house, and it seems like there was the building envelope, and whoever built this thing 44 years ago decided to just build the house a little bit like this. So the garage, two pieces of the garage stick out over the front setback about 3 or 4 feet. Nothing that you visually would pick up on, I don't think, when you drive down the street. The same issue happened on the back when somebody built an addition, I think back in the late 90s. But there is a letter of no action from the code enforcement officer from the year 2000, which I explained to Councilor Vale, that I was just starting my senior year in high school at that time. So it's one of these things where now that we're working with the code enforcement officers to do some renovations on the house, we did a setback review and we did all of the permitting that we needed to do. And it popped up, and it was one of these things that I just realized we probably needed to get taken care of officially. And I thought it was best to kind of do this now if I could. But I'm happy to answer any other questions apart from that.
Awesome. Does anyone on the council have any questions? No? Very lawyery of you to make sure you close the loop on this.
Yes,
So
yeah.
appreciate
Well,
it.
the town attorneys were great as well, just so you know. The folks
Thank
at Jensen
you.
Baird were great.
Glad to hear that. Awesome. If no one has any questions, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to comment? No? All right, we'll close public comment and open for council discussion.
When you're ready, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Everyone okay with that? All right. We have a motion from Councilor Eads. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Councilor Magoon. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Moving on to, congratulations, Mark. Good, best of luck to you. And it's actually not Mrs. Segrist, it's Mrs. Stone. So.
My apologies.
Wonderful. Moving on. Next item on the agenda is 24-136 to review a draft I feel like this is worded incorrectly now that I read this. To review a draft installations of artificial turf ordinance and to refer to a public hearing to be held on January 13th, 2025. Just a couple of things here. This was pulled together by the town's attorney based off of the initial ordinance by Westport, Connecticut, but has since evolved since some of the council discussion and ordinance discussion that we've had. And just to make sure we're all on the same page, this is just to set a public hearing date. Mr. Manager, do you have anything to add to that? Or Denise? Yeah.
Just props to Councilor Thorson for the work that she did. She made it a lot easier for us and the town's attorney to craft this and get it teed up for this evening. So we're ready to move forward and for the public hearing.
Are we able to discuss the language right now of the ordinance, perhaps? I feel like this isn't on.
Hello?
Everyone's been really quiet tonight. Maybe I'm just deaf.
Hello?
So as part of it, it talks about the permitting. Let's see. The code enforcement officer may require that a copy of the manufacturer's specifications of the exact type of infill be used prior to the issuance of any permit under this section. I would request that we turn that into a must
May into must.
or shall or something, because it's really as simple as printing it off and having it as part of that permitting packet, because I've seen applications that have come up and it's a fill in the blank and it's like one word answer, not very descriptive, and I think it would help Bill, grant permits, and also it's on file what this person is saying that they're putting in, and you've got the specs. So to me, it would be kind of another layer of like accountability and perhaps potential enforcement too, if what was put down was not what was claimed to be put down. Aside from that, I don't know if the mention of acrylic sand, I don't know if that has to be specifically like the Westport, Connecticut one where it said acrylic coated sand, because the acrylic portion is the man-made component, but there's sand inside. So I don't know if that is hazy at all to anyone. I mean, the ordinance says must be fully organic, so it would solve that. It's just as part of like granting permits and kind of putting things in columns on whether or not it's allowed or not allowed, and making it easier for, code enforcement to decide whether something complies. If it would be helpful to put, a larger list of things in the synthetic column rather than kind of saying, or anything else that, contains synthetic materials. So just thinking about how like balancing micromanagement in the ordinance with also making it easier to either approve or deny a permit. So that's just something I thought of as well with that. And then the only other thing is there are some other ordinances out there that will specify that, which I don't know if there are any existing installations in town with synthetic infill, but it does say that any existing installations at the end of the infill's useful life needs to be replaced with something organic. So I don't know if we need to have that language in there or if just this stating synthetic is banned takes care of that. And whether or not that, if someone did have that, they would need to come and kind of put in an application or kind of, you know, put on paper exactly what infill they're going to be using going forward. So if that's something that we have to do, if that's like a loophole or how that would need to be addressed, if at all. So that's all I have.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I can follow up with town's attorney on that if there is a, if existing turf, I think there is one other installation within town that exists. If that would be a grandparented event, that may meet the end of its life, and then the property owner may find that it's served its purpose and can be replaced with sod. But I can find out if there is a grandparenting effect, and the must is a great addition.
Okay.
I know we did try to capture with any on the synthetic side of it, any man-made infill, and trying to have that. So that would be like on the acrylic sand, there would be a man-made component of that. So I think that our hope was that that was going to capture that all. And then the other thought that came to mind, and Councilor Magoon and I were chatting earlier about the ordinance and looking at such installation. Generally, the thought is something of this caliber would end up being at site plan review level as well. So a lot of that, a lot of the questions as far as the quality of the, what the infill is going to be, what the materials are going to be, how it's going to be installed, as we'll start this month at the planning board level. Those conversations will be there. So they'll have, that it's not, we're just trying to think about in what instances would it be that someone would be installing turf. And so trying to think about different opportunities there would be. So if Mr. and Mrs. homeowner or a homeowner wanted to put in turf field at their property and it wasn't to the point that it needed site plan review, at least we have this on record to say, okay, if you are going to do it, the code officer must have that evidence of where it's going to be. So,
Okay.
It's the first foray into this, but I think, we're trying to do it. But we can get those. I'll get that one question answered, and then we'll get the must switched out.
What is the tipping point where something changes from just a permit, like if I want to put a little putting green in my backyard versus site plan review? Can you remind
Generally,
me of
it's
that?
scope and scale,
Okay.
and it may be the thought I was having is if, let's say, Seacoast Soccer wanted to buy a piece of land in Cumberland, and they wanted to put a domed, like in Gorham, they have this our space or whatever it's called now, but they have a domed stadium over there that has turf on the inside. Something like that would the scope and scale of that project would be subject to site plan review. So then, at that point, you'd be able to look at it. Whereas if someone living on Farwell decided that they wanted to put in a little putting green, at that point it'd be you'd have to come to Bill or the code officer and say, well, we want to do this and want to make sure we're doing it appropriately.
Cool, thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions before we open it for public comment? No? All right. Anyone for public comment? Okay. We will close public comment and open it for council discussion. Any thoughts, questions, concerns about this date? Thank you for your feedback, Denise,
I
on,
probably should have saved that for this portion, sorry.
it's okay.
Perhaps there would have been a public comment on my comment.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those things that it's science. Science is evolving, and what we call good today, it will not be good enough, 10 years down the road, and will change to adopt to the changing environment. And I think that the important part is the town is committed to a climate action plan. We don't always knock one over the fence, but we certainly are trying to do the best we can. And so this is a good first start, and I fully support it.
Magoon, Eads?
Well, I think Councilor Thorson brought up some good questions. I wonder if the wording of the synthetic infill description will answer that, where it's, any man-made infill from recycled or virgin materials, including but not limited to. Not a lawyer, but that might be encompassing enough for in the future where they come up with something that's not on this list. So we don't need to have an exhaustive list, just a representative
Yeah.
list might be good enough.
Wonderful. No further discussion. I would entertain a motion.
So I move to set a public hearing date of January 13th to consider and act on the adoption of Chapter 20, installations of artificial turf ordinance of the Cumberland Code of Ordinances.
Second?
I have a motion by Magoon and a second by Thorson. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Wonderful. Moving on to 24-137, to authorize the town manager to execute a recreational trail easement within Greeley Woods subdivision as recommended by the Lands and Conservation Commission. And I believe we have John Jensenius here tonight to give us a little overview on this agenda item. Thank you for being here, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, what I want to do is, first of all, talk a little bit about what normally happens when you have a subdivision easement. Usually there are three components. The first is it's recorded with the County Register of Deeds in the subdivision plan. It's also recorded with the County Registry of Deeds in each affected homeowner's deed. And it's also recorded with the County Registry of Deeds as an easement, as a document, which really gives the information about the easement. In this particular case with Greeley Woods subdivision, which was approved in May of 1977, that is the plan. And if you look very carefully, which I know you can't read it, right along the southern edge here, or the southeastern edge, there is a 20-foot recreational easement. In fact, I can blow that up a little bit, and you can see the 20-foot easement that runs right along the border there. In each of the lots that crosses, in their deeds, you'll see that said premises are subject to the 20-foot recreational easement along the southerly boundary. What you don't see, and you see in the other easements, the utility easement is it's registered in the county registry. The same is true of an order by the DEP, which is recorded in the county registry. But this one was never recorded, so there are no details provided about that particular easement. That easement is in place. It is a recreational easement, somewhat undefined as to exactly what that means. So what we're trying to do is to put a recreational trail easement over top of the recreational easement, which basically fills in the details. So as far as allowed uses, low impact outdoor recreation, including walking, hiking, dog walking, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and biking. Prohibited uses, motorized vehicles, camping, fire, smoking, alcoholic beverages. Hunting is prohibited except with owner permission in accordance to state law. There's very little area within that easement that is not within 300 feet of a house, but it is in there based on some of the wishes of some of the property owners, just to emphasize that hunting is prohibited. And in addition, The easement provides the town the right, but not the obligation to establish and maintain the recreational trail. And it does not obligate the homeowners to maintain that trail. So that really is the overall goal of the easement. It's really should have been done in 1977, but better late than never. So anyhow, at this point, 5 of the 6 homeowners, the properties in green, have signed the easement, have agreed to it. The property owner in yellow has just not going to sign, just decided not to sign. So the recreational easement, the original one, still applies to that property, but the recreational trail easement will apply to the properties shown in green. The goal would be at some point in the future, either with this homeowner or a future homeowner, that they sign a similar document. But this is the best we could do. So those people will have the prohibited uses and allowed uses that will eventually appear in the deeds for those properties. The property in yellow will just show the recreational easement without any prohibited uses or allowed uses. Questions?
Denise?
What is defined as a motorized vehicle? Thinking like e-bikes and stuff like that, or things that are kind of motorized, so but still a bike. So where would that fall?
It's rather complicated. E-bikes, by state definition, depending on the trail size, Class 1 and Class 2 may be allowed based on, and this is for state properties.
Okay.
Given that this is a private property, I don't know exactly how this would go, but in general, e-bikes, it's a question, and I think it is a question that we have to deal with on not just, well, on many of our properties.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, on a very narrow property, the state says that an e-bike is not allowed if it doesn't allow non-motorized vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Oh.
Just, can you give just a background of how it came up that this was never registered? Like, how do we figure this out? Like, you know, it's been 40 some odd years, and what prompted the realization?
Well, you mean what prompted the effort to get this?
The realization that it hadn't been registered, you know, did we, I don't know if we just, this is just my ignorance, did we do a review of all easements in the town and realize that this was the one that wasn't registered, or was there another thing that prompted?
No, I looked at it. It was a trail that I was aware of, and you know, I actually go through a lot of the documents looking at things, and this was one that it seemed like it could be used. It does need some maintenance, and it's one that I would have liked to do some work on previously, but given that we aren't authorized to do it, I wouldn't do it. So it seemed like a good idea to put this easement in place so we have things defined.
Mike?
John, good to see you, and thanks for the work on this. Question on the hunting. The wording says that we're prohibiting hunting. I don't think we can do that legally. The only ones that can do it are IF and W. I agree that nobody should be in hunting. If you're within 100 yards, either bow or rifle of a resident or a building, you can't. I would ask you to think about the wording on that, because the wording says we're prohibiting hunting, and I don't think we can do it.
Yeah, we can't do it on publicly owned land. This has been passed through the town's attorney, and we did have discussions over that.
Okay.
So, so I think it's okay. I mean, I'm not an attorney myself, so I can only go by what the town's attorney has said.
Well, yeah, Matt's been reviewed by Alyssa, I assume, or Ben, and, okay.
Mr. Manager, are we good from a legal perspective? Or if we want to look into that, can we approve it with the understanding that we want to just have it once over from the town attorney if it hasn't already been?
I think it'd be good to go forward, and I can get, I will do a follow-up, just to double check, but I believe, you know, I don't find Attorney Tibbetts to miss many,
Okay, okay,
miss many on that one.
perfect. Does anyone have any further questions for John before we open it to public comment? No? All right, thanks so much, John. Awesome. Perfect. And we will open it up to public comment at this time if anyone would like to comment. Seeing nobody? All right, I will close public comment and move on to council discussion. Any burning thoughts, Bob Vale?
This really is the third time we've been here this year with stuff that's gone, not years, but decades before somebody catches it. And, you know, they're all minor. It's just interesting. As a builder, I'm acutely aware of meets and bounds and locations of buildings in relationship to setbacks and easements, completing a house up in West Bath that had an easement across the property, and it came up, and so we had to have the easement removed from the lot, and the exercise of doing that, it really had no bearing on locating the house or anything like that, but it was an existing easement that was an encumbrance on a piece of property, and so it's just interesting. We keep seeing these.
Yeah. Also, I think a testament to our lands and conservation and John in particular that they are able to identify these things and close the loop for us, because I think otherwise they just, since 1977, it's just been kind of sitting wide open there. So, any other comments, questions, thoughts? No? I would entertain a motion unless there's concerns otherwise.
I would move to authorize the town manager to execute a recreational trail easement within Greeley Woods subdivision as recommended by the Lands and Conservation Commission.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councillor Vale and a second by Councillor Magoon. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Thank you, John. All right, moving on to item 24-138, to authorize the town manager to sign a grant application for Revision Energy for electric vehicle charging stations. Matt, did you want to chat a little bit about this? I recall it, maybe I can just, 4 charging stations, the cost of the charging would be to the consumer, cost to the town potentially would be $12,000 in FY26, correct?
It's a little bit more than that, Madam Chair. I may have misspoken before. It's the local match would be $29,964, but it was also more expensive than I anticipated. It's just under $100,000
Yeah.
for that. But we're looking to gain council authorization to apply for Efficiency Main grant. That in addition to tax credits of another $29,000, just under $30,000, would combine to offset that acquisition cost. And I have one correction to make in my memo.
Yep.
I forgot to leave the word hour out. We'll be charging 35 cents per kilowatt hour, not per kilowatt.
Okay.
That would have been a very good deal, but on the first part, but.
I don't know, so thank you for drawing that to my attention.
Thanks to Denny Gallaudet for providing me, hey, you missed that, and, but I was happy to correct that this evening because I don't want us to overcharge. However, but no, this is a great opportunity for us to do this. The thought is by having these charging stations in the town center, it's in a high-traffic location, high visibility, also a good opportunity to consolidate trips to the library, as well as take advantage of this as an option. And it's also consistent with the town's sorry. Oh, gosh. What's that? Yes, sorry. I was like, climate action, yeah, climate
All
action
good.
plan. And the Land and Conservation Commission is aware of this and also expressed their support for this proposal. But it's a good project, and hopefully, and I think we'd be very competitive to get this done. And if we can do that, and we get it done, probably we anticipate next summer. So
Okay.
there's no, you're not tied to it if you approve it. But we would have the opportunity if, through the budget process, if the council decides that it wants to
Gotcha.
fund it, then, it'll be all contingent upon council approval.
Great. And just for clarity, so the total project cost $99,949. We'd be applying on this approval for a grant for $40,000 in funding, and then we'd be getting potential credits for $29,984.70. And then we would be required to potentially match an FY '27 or FY '26.
FY '26.
$29,964.30. And this would not be binding. This would be through budget process, a potential addition, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, awesome.
And this would be our first foray in trying to
Yeah.
do this, and I do think would be very competitive. We also looked at Twin Brook as well as a future site, and I think we'll keep that as well for a future expansion. We'll see how we do with this first grant. So
Okay.
I want to thank the Lands and Conservation Commission as well as Bridget
Yeah.
and Bridget Perry, our town planner, and Chris Bolduc they went around to look at different locations and explore different opportunities. But we felt this was the most competitive at this time, wanted to push that forward.
Yeah. It's really incredible to see the opportunities out there when you really search for them, because they can make a huge impact for us financially, which is awesome. Does anybody have any questions before we open it up to public comment?
I have 2 questions.
Go ahead.
Where would this be put? You said revisiting Twin Brook at some point, so where would these be
This
proposed
will
to
be at the
go?
library.
Okay,
Yep, at
cool.
the Prince Memorial Library.
Okay, got it.
And because
then-
it's got the power right there, and
Okay.
we can get a good installation as well.
How long, do we have estimated use on how long it would take us to basically break even, I guess, with our match versus how much we're charging? Or would we just, how would that work exactly? Is it just, we're putting this in because it's, a good addition? Or is this something that we're going to be making like a small stream of money for the town?
I think it would be a small stream of money, to be quite honest, Councilor Thorson, but I think over the life of it, it may end up paying for itself.
Okay.
It all depends upon usage.
Yeah.
So if, but it's a good, I think they'll end up using a charge point, charge heads, and that's a national standard that they use. And Revision's been great to work with on that as well, and they've got a lot of experience in doing this, and they've advised us through the whole process.
Awesome. And I think, Councilor Magoon, you had some questions?
So I think I just have 2 questions. It says a level 2 4-port EV charging station. So that is one physical station with 4 connectors, or to service how many spaces? Because usually it's you got one physical station, and then that serves 2 parking spots, and you might have 4 physical ports for different connectors. But I don't know if you know
Yeah,
that.
my thought is it could be, offer one service, but it could be bisected into 2 different, twin head services, where you'd have, ultimately it comes down to cord length. So if you had one head here and one head here straddling 2 spaces, then they could come up and 2 cars could plug in from one, and then 2 cars could plug in from the other. But it may be considered a 4-head, but you just have to have the length of the plug.
Okay, so we're potentially looking at 4
Parking
spaces,
spaces,
as
yep.
opposed to 2 spaces with 4 port. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question was, right now it's set to 35 cents per kilowatt hour. Is that set in stone, or is there a way for that to change over time as CMP continues to increase its rates? That would just decrease our potential profit.
Margin.
Our margins going forward, or can we maintain the margins?
We can, I did get confirmation from Mr. Bolduc as well, that, as I said, it's 2 stations with 2 heads each, so that'll
Okay.
be 4 parking spots. Also, yeah, town can set the rates at where you want to. This is the initial rate that you want us, that we're gonna try it out at, and then you can find, if it ends up, if a barrel of oil gets more expensive and the cost of generating electricity increases or what have you, you have the ability to set that rate as you go along. If you find that it's not sustainable, then.
So there's nothing in the application that's going to tie us?
Not to the pricing.
Okay.
No, yeah, Cape Elizabeth installed them at Fort Williams a number of years ago, and then also at the community center, and we came out with an initial pricing that we had used, and we adjusted it a couple different times, and the grant itself is agnostic as to the price per kilowatt hour. That's just our initial foray
Sure.
as to what that's what we're recommending.
Is 35 cents per hour like the going rate, out of curiosity? I do not have an EV, so I'm not sure how the pricing works for that if you're charging.
I usually charge mine at home. So.
Yeah, you don't know, okay. Not certain, just curious. Awesome, any further questions for, yeah?
Andrew, real quick, this is the level 2, is that enough?
Yeah, so the 3 levels. Basically, level 1 is you plug it into a 240 volt at your home, and it takes you like a week to charge a car. It's useless for a vehicle size battery. Level 2 is, I've got a level 2 at home, so I charge it overnight, and so I can go, get a full charge, and depending on the car, 6 to 8 hours. For a full charge, that's 200, 300 miles of range, and then the level 3 is the fast charger, which is anywhere from 20 minutes sometimes up to maybe 45. That gives you that full range, but that's significantly more expensive than this. So this would just be sort of you go, and if you're at the library for 2 hours, you're getting 30, 40, 50 miles. Easy enough to get you home, to get you to your, where you need to be next kind of thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'd say it's the standard. The level 3s are usually on, the 95 corridor kind of thing, where you got people making long road trips and they're stopping, charging, eating, and continuing on. Level 2 is I'm going to spend some time here and hang out for a bit.
Yeah, Mike, the other thing that I think we discussed briefly during our finance committee meeting, but haven't made much headway on, is I do think it would be an interesting opportunity to have these types of chargers also at trailheads, because then it encourages folks to get outdoors, utilize trailheads, and then this level 2 type charger would do the same thing. I don't know, just another interesting concept for maybe down the road.
No, I get it, I just didn't,
Yeah.
I knew there were 3 levels, and that's why I wanted Andrew to explain it. I just didn't know are we better off going with spending the money and going with 1 station with 2 chargers that can get people in and get people out?
Yeah,
Like
like a level 3.
Yes, that's, I'm all for this,
Yeah.
don't think I'm not.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if our money or this would be better spent
On a-
doing a rapid charge.
Yeah.
And I defer to you on that,
I've got no idea on how much those cost. I would defer. I know it's significantly more expensive.
it is, Matt?
It's it'd be a lot, yeah. We'd probably have to charge a bit more per kilowatt hour to make that pay off. But I think also my thought is it would probably at least have 50% more to double the cost. Just because it's a lot more power coming through as well.
Right, and so I would actually go back to that, Matt, and I'll do what the will of the council is on this. No dog in this fight, but are we better off taking the money from both and just get 1 rapid charging station so we, if Andrew's sitting there and going, I've got to run to, next day I'm going someplace I can go in, I'll run down and get a 30-minute charge, and that way I'm ready to go in the morning if I have to travel someplace, and
Yeah.
Do you know if it changes our funding if we did that model Mike's proposing? I think part of me wonders, to Mike's point, what is the average time spent at the library, right? Like, yeah. So I wonder if, to your point, like, if we could still get the funding for the $40,000 on one level 3 charger and then see how that goes, would that be more effective for the consumer or the resident on a day-to-day?
My concern with that is that we'd be getting the 40 grand, and then that would just take our local match significantly higher to meet the price.
Okay.
You know, because if it's, and I'm just gonna, you know, if this level 2 all installed is 100 grand roughly, a level 3 is probably, you know, 200, 250, you know, it's significantly higher to put that in, which would mean that we would be on the hook to cover that difference. And I don't know if we would have enough usage to get anywhere close to ever covering that cost, even with a higher rate.
Even with a 1-2 port?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
If it'd be helpful, to qualify for the grant, you need to have at least 4, up to 6 chargers, so
Okay.
that may be why it's,
Matt,
you
that
get
ends,
most bang for the buck.
thank you very much.
And also,
Thanks
the
to
level
Chris.
3s,
Chris has been involved in this, he just,
there's been some issues with level 3s in general. You know, you have 6 chargers somewhere, and 3 of them aren't working for whatever reason. Some of that is company specific, and all, and some of it's just, you know, probably installed wrong or what. But it's just that would be another worry too, of going to that level and then sitting there with an out of order sign on it would be a bad look for us, and you know,
Great,
use
yeah.
of taxpayer money and all.
Very helpful, thank you.
Madam Chair, I had one other
Yeah.
update on the kilowatt hour pricing. Currently, this year, we're looking at 21 to 22 cents from CMP per
Okay.
kilowatt hour pricing. And then forecast for next year, at least as far as the standard offer, you're looking at about 23 cents per kilowatt hour. So the town may be looking at
13
12 to
cents.
13 cents per kilowatt hour. That would be coming to the bottom line.
Okay.
Bless you.
One other question, which might not be for this forum, but maybe when we're starting to have budget conversations or whenever this is being ironed out, but it would be good to know if this grant is binding to location in any way. Like, you know, if we're getting good usage for, you know, 2 of the ports, you know, and maybe it might make sense to put one of the ports somewhere else. Like, is that an option, or does it always need to remain in that PML library parking lot?
I think we'd be, in this instance, we're applying specifically for that property, so it'd be location dependent.
Okay.
And then we would look at we'd look at the next round of funding. We could look at that, you know, this time again next year. We could say, okay, this has been a good, successful project.
Okay.
And let's look at Twin Brooks and then other locations that we may find.
All right.
With I'm coming at this from ignorance of how we have everything set up with the solar field. Is the library part of that sort of group? So
Their electric bill is included in our usage.
So
Yep.
potentially, especially if we expand the solar field, we're not as tied to CMP's rate increase, right? So we might get more than 13 cents if we're producing the energy, because most of the time when people are going to be there, at least in the summer months, will be during the day when we're making electricity.
We don't pay 23 cents. We pay, when we're producing electricity, we're buying, it's a net wash. There's no cost, no matter what CMP charges, whether it's 23 cents or 53 cents. If we produce
Right.
what we use, there's no cost. So it's
net
a wash in that respect.
So depending on how much capacity we have and how much more this adds to it, we might be netting closer to 35 cents as opposed to just the 13
Yeah,
difference,
possibly,
right?
depending upon the net, like whatever the net energy billing credit's going to be, so that it'd be the difference between one and the other. So if we, let's say our net energy billing credit was, say, 15% less than what, or 15 or 20% less than, we can make up to, let's say, 5 to 7 cents more per kilowatt hour, depending upon how that rests. So as we generate that, because it translates over the course of the year. So in the more productive months, we may have a higher level of credits, and then, yeah, but you could end up, the town would benefit from that in multiple ways, I think.
So in short, it's a little bit more complicated than just CMP's rate minus, or the 35 cents minus CMP's rate.
Yeah, but
We are adding electrification, we're adding heat pumps, so we're using more than we produce. And so that's why we want to increase the size of our field, is because we're using more electricity every year. So it's, the benefits of increasing our solar field make sense.
Any further questions for, go ahead.
So I like this, except I don't like the $29,000 piece of it. And so one of the things that the library's doing a study right now, and I'm hoping that that's a question that they're asking: how many people would actually use this? And are we responding because there's grant money available, or are we responding because there is the library's reached out and said, we've got people who would like to see this?
We anticipate, the staff anticipation is that this is probably the highest visibility and probably one of the ports that would get the most traffic of any location in town at this time. It seemed like that would be the most successful versus, say, if we put one in at the West Cumberland Fire Station or something along those lines, where this is right in town center and a person can, they could come to the library and go for story hour and plug in and, for an hour and pick up a good charge, or walk, go to Dara or what have you. So we try to get the most concentration of the most people around it and in a high visibility location. So it would be well trafficked. I know, anecdotally, I know the community center installation we did in Cape was always busy, and that's right in town center. And then, of course, Fort Williams, it's really busy, 8 months out of the year. So they get used, and people, they look at their app and they find, okay, I'm driving through Cumberland, I'm at a half tank or half charge. They'll identify that. And I know people plan around that pretty regular. I know my wife and I, when we, if we're going up to Sunday River, we'll get up there early if we take her car, because it's a, partial hybrid, and we can plug that in and get topped off while we're there and get 45 miles out of the deal. So people do think about that strategically. So, our thought is that that's probably going to be the best place to get the best return and the most use.
And looking forward, sort of to your point, Twin Brooks or in the West Cumberland fields too, for the bigger events that we host at Twin Brooks, I'm sure that there are people that would, coming from, all over, that would look and say, oh, yeah, I'll love to go see that, but where can I charge? And be able to charge at the location and knowing that it's there is a huge draw for, be able to bring an EV as opposed to an internal combustion vehicle.
Or even in the wintertime, people are there cross-country skiing, or that's why we felt this was probably the best one to start with, and then we'd see how our success would come from that, and then secondary installation would be Twin Brook, and then we'd see how that goes, and then go from there, especially as long as the grant funding sits out there and makes it somewhat palatable versus having to fund it all of ourselves.
A couple things. Yeah. One, these would be on 24/7, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's cool. And then second, I can't remember if it was GP-COG or not. There was a survey going around, and there's an app where you can go in and propose an area anywhere in the county where you'd like to see a charger. And so I think the library is a good point, because when I was in there looking around, there's already one proposed for Rod Cove parking lot. There's already a couple at Twin Brooks. So those are separate from this. So making sure we're not kind of like duplicating effort, I think would be helpful. So yeah, I think library would be a good place. And kind of off of those other main areas that people are kind of already tagging in this app, which doesn't mean that they're going to go there, but the more that they get, like the more pins on that map, the more it's going to get visibility. And Twin Brooks is pretty heavily pinned at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. If there's no more questions, I will open it up to public comments. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Okay, closing public comments and opening to council discussion. Was there any further discussion?
Just one quick question, is where we're gonna get the $30,000
Yeah.
from?
I think that's a concern I'm seeing kind of from the whole council here. I would agree it's a concern in the sense that we have some uncertainty, but I think the only thing that's making me feel okay about it is that this is just to apply for the grant, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Manager? And so there is still the option to remove it from the budget if it doesn't make sense during budget season. So I think that's where I sit on it, but I don't know if anyone has any further thoughts.
I'm happy applying for the grant, but I think come budget season, we're going to be
It's going to be tight.
taking another look at this.
Yeah, I would agree.
You know, I'm gonna vote for it, but I'd like to barely reflect what you said, is we have the option to remove it if we get tight on the budget.
And also, I don't know, I mean, to me, I may not be here anymore at that point, but when this thing eventually breaks even, I'm thinking over its useful life, that is hopefully the goal, that it ends up negating itself.
Yeah.
So while this upcoming budget season, it would be tight, it's kind of like that long-term view.
Yeah.
Is kind of what helps me be in favor of adopting
Why
that.
we plant apple trees, it's that long
Yeah.
term.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Well, I would entertain a motion, unless there's any further council discussion.
I move to authorize the town manager to sign a grant application with Revision Energy for electric vehicle charging stations.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Counselor Vale and a second by Counselor Magoon. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. So moving on to 24-139 to authorize FY 2024 end-of-year transfers. This agenda item was originally on the agenda at the May 13th, 2024 and tabled for potentially the July 23rd, 2024 meeting to get a full holistic view on the end-of-year financials, and it was not added to the agenda. So we are just adding this back in. These are funds that will be carried forward from FY '24 to FY '25. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this agenda item?
That 200,000 under capital, was that reserves from the fire department positions? What is that? And was that 200,000 already accounted for? Because that came in after the fact, right?
That was after the fact. Yeah, capital, this would be for other capital needs, such as materials and equipment that are capital expenses versus human capital, which would be of a different, salaries and benefits side.
Because that wasn't, I mean, I wasn't here at that time, but that didn't come out of personnel budget or anything. That was out of some other kind of reserve fund, right, or contingency?
A contingency, I believe, if I recall correctly, and that was during the May 13, the original May, let me just make sure I have my notes
Okay.
correct. That was during the original May 13th meeting, I believe that was brought up. And then, yes.
Okay. Sounds good. Those numbers just matched up, so I wasn't sure if that was that or if it was something different.
Any questions, other questions before we open for public comment? Alrighty, I will now open it up for public comment. Anyone from the public would like to comment? All right, I will now close public comments and open it back for council discussion. Does anyone have any further thoughts on this agenda item? Bob Vale?
Just so the public knows what we're doing, we're taking human resource reserve, we're putting $30,000 there. The comp plan is $150,000. Capital improvement projects is $200,000. Senior tax is $100,000. North Yarmouth Rec, $25,000. Admin contracted services is $25,000 for a total of $530,000.
Thank you, Bob. Counselor Vale? All right, if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I would move to authorize end-of-year transfers for fiscal year 2024 as recommended by the town manager.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Counselor Vale and a second by Counselor Magoon. All those in favor? Unanimous. Brenda. Awesome. And that moves us into, that is the end of legislation and policy, moving us into new business. I will start to my right with Counselor Vale.
Wow. You caught me completely off guard. I was trying to get my thoughts together.
I'm sorry.
Faster.
I had one thing that comes to mind. I noticed that we have, I see this in the town crier, staffing positions, firefighter and medic. I'm wondering if you can, a couple of things. Why we're not just looking for paramedics and why we're looking for a combination. And I wonder if that would help us attract better opportunities for staffing.
Yes.
Just a question that I'd like to have answered, not tonight, but
Sure.
at some date.
If I may, Council Vale, I know I had that discussion with the chief as well. I mean, the ultimate goal would be to pull on a paramedic and have the position filled with that. However, if we can, oftentimes, if the chief is thinking if we can get an EMT basic or an EMT advanced as well with that track to advance to do that, they may be with the department longer if they're a younger person who may have gone through the basic course. So you kind of try to cast a wider net, but the goal would be to have a paramedic just because of the level of service.
Maybe you missed my point. I was trying to take the firefighter piece out of it. Instead of having firefighter / and I use the word medic, EMT, paramedic, I use that
Okay,
as a round.
I understand now.
Maybe we should just look at the healthcare as an issue and the firefighter as a separate issue. And I'm just curious how that might help with us with staffing.
They also do firefighter duties as well. The paramedics would do that as well. They'd staff on a fire response. But I can get the chief to give us a better. It's not my business, but I know people who do that business, so I can get a better explanation and provide it to the council as well.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the pool looks out there like out there. You know, how many EMTs are there available to hire? You know, and if we're combining the two ratings, do we cut the pool in half or maybe not?
Well, I know on the CBA, for instance, or the collective bargaining agreement, that we don't have a specific category just for firefighter. The compensation is EMT basic, EMT advanced, and then paramedic. So the firefighter is they have to have at least the EMT basic to start with us, but they need to advance to the EMTA per their hiring agreements as well, from what I understand through talking with the chief. So firefighter is kind of like you have to have that to qualify, period. It's like your base skills, but you've got to have the EMT skills. We wouldn't just hire a firefighter, period. It's more of a firefighter / EMT or paramedic is kind of the way it's been. I'm doing a poor job explaining it, but that's kind of how the chief explained it. But I can get you a further explanation, get it to the entire council. I'm sure Chief Small will be happy to write that up.
Anything else, Bob?
I may come back later.
Okay.
He's gonna
Counselor
reserve his
Thorson.
minutes.
Yeah, I do like your point because aren't the majority of our calls also medical related? So maybe going toward, I don't know how this is all structured. That's a question of kind of what you can do and what you're targeting and stuff like that. I don't have anything. I'm Fred.
What?
I have nothing. I have nothing.
You always have so much good stuff. All right. Moving over
I-
to Counselor Eads.
Maybe you'll come back to me too. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll think about it.
Matt, I just want to compliment the police department on what happened up in Knights Pond. And I also, your presentation earlier was really hit home to me because there's nobody more disgusted about what happened than fellow hunters. And that fellow up there was not typical. I've lived here all my life, and I can only think of one hunting accident in all my years, and that occurred on Little Shebig Island, which was unoccupied, and a bunch of lobstermen were out there driving deer, and one shot the other. But that was 40 whatever years ago, and it's just horrible. But I think everybody's handled it very professionally, and I've got to compliment the public following the Facebook site, Cumberland, North Yarmouth. There were no real cries to end hunting, and it was more focused on what this person did and what the victims lost. And so that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Counselor Magoon?
So just a quick update from the LCC, just to put a marker on the calendar. The Forestry Committee will have a landowners education event sometime in January or February. There's not a specific date yet about invasive species, and they'll be looking to invite landowners with 10-plus acres to talk about funding opportunities for dealing with the invasive species and, identifying and stuff like that. So just sort of put the marker out there, something to be aware of coming up.
Thank you, Counselor Magoon. Bob, you have one final comment?
Actually, two.
Okay.
I'll remind everybody that Wednesday night is an opportunity for us to meet counselors and managers from other towns. Greater Portland Council of Governments is putting on an open house for us at North Yarmouth Memorial, the old schoolhouse there.
West Cuskago.
West Custago, yes.
Yep.
And then, Mike, I too have thought about this hunting accident. My father-in-law was hunting, and his hunting partner shot him. My father-in-law was a Marine and had some training to what to do when you're shot, and I know he did some self-first aid to save his life, but he suffered for years with bullet fragments in his leg. And anyways, his partner was sound hunting, shooting by sound, and not when I hear about accidents like this, I'm just appalled because, certainly you and I, growing up, we were always taught, make sure you know what your target is. If you don't know what your target is, don't ever think about pulling the trigger. So now I'm done.
Shooting by sound, that's not a thing.
Yeah, that is a little alarming, but thank you, Bob. The only thing I have is Brenda sent through a calendar invite today, but we will be having a housing workshop that will be open to the public on January 27th at 5 p.m., followed by a TIF 1 workshop at 6 p.m. prior to the town council meeting on January 27th. Otherwise, everyone stay safe out there. Thank you to the municipal team for plowing. It's going to be a long night. Otherwise, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Did everybody do their stuff?
Yeah.
I have one more question, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
So go ahead.
Because, I'm looking through the crier, and my question is, how are we on these 95-plus cheer bags for the food pantry? Like, what do we need? What are we doing for this drop-off?
The link is on the front of our webpage.
Okay, cool.
Will you repeat that into the mic, though, so people know? The link is on
The link is on the front of the webpage. And basically, I can see this Sign Up Genius form, and it's really cool. And yes, pick what you will provide and commit. It looks like there's still some slots on quite a few things here. But there's also a lot of slots filled, so yes. 'Tis the season of giving, holiday food drive 2024. Support the Cumberland Food Pantry. I said something, there we go.
Thank you, Denise. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Bob. Second from Mike. All those in favor? Unanimous, meeting adjourned.